In this video, I am going to discuss the Revolt of 1857. For an easy understanding, I have categorized the topic into different subheadings. However, before coming to the topic, I would like to explain about this PPT, audience and prerequisites. About the PPT, the Revolt of 1857 is one of the most significant events of modern Indian history that brought many structural changes for the East India Company, British government, as well as for the Indians. So, this PPT focuses on all those aspects that brought changes in India, including the causes of revolt, centers of revolt, causes of failure of revolt, nature of revolt, and consequences of revolt. Audience, this PPT is designed so comprehensively that it covers both sorts of questions, objective or multiple choice questions, as well as subjective questions. Therefore, it is fruitful for high school students as well as for the aspirants who are preparing for the competitive exams including civil services, banking, railway, SSC, etc. Prerequisites. To understand clearly, our prior reading experience of this topic will be highly beneficial. If you have the prior knowledge of this topic, then you can understand and revise it swiftly. Let's have an introductory background of this topic. The Revolt of 1857 was watershed area and landmark event. We can easily identify the social, political, and administrative situations before and after the revolt. Though the revolt began on May 10, 1857 by some of the Sepoys, but its background were rooted much deeper. We will discuss that under the subheading Causes of Revolt in detail later in this PPT. The revolt was unplanned and unorganized, but it spread very fast and covered almost whole north of India. Now, let us start with the causes of revolt. There were many causes of this revolt. Significant of them were economic causes, political causes, military causes, administrative causes, socio-religious causes, discontent among Sepoys, influence of outside events, and immediate causes. Let us discuss each causes one by one. Economic causes. Economic causes were the major one. East India Company's officials were practicing discriminatory policies. They had imposed a heavy tax on Indian goods, suppressed the Indian small-scale industries, introduced the permanent settlement systems, etc. All these collectively affected Indians and Indian economy very badly. Political causes were significant. As East India Company officials were introduced suppressive policies, namely subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse. Governor General Wellesley introduced the concept of subsidiary alliance. According to the term of this alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed force. They were to be protected by the company but had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. However, if the Indian rulers failed to make the payment, then part of their territory was taken away as penalty. For example, the ruler of Awadh was forced to give over half of his territory to the company. On the other hand, the Governor General Dalhousie introduced the doctrine of lapse. According to this doctrine, any princely estate or territory under the direct influence of the British East India Company would automatically be annexed if the ruler was either manifestly incompetent or died without a male heir. In addition to these policies, British officials were also interfering into native socio-religious affairs, which was not acceptable by the Indians. Military causes. Soldiers were the immediate factor of revolt. The Indian soldiers were economically, physically, and mentally exploited by the company's officers. They were discriminated in their salaries, posts, and promotions. In addition to this, British soldiers were treated Indian soldiers very badly that endangered profound dissension in Indian soldiers' mind. Administrative causes. Company's officials, especially at a lower scale, were fundamentally corrupt. Furthermore, the Indians were marginalized in giving the justice even in the court of law. Socio-religious causes. British were promoting Christianity and many Indians were encouraged to convert their religion into Christianity. Besides, British interference in Sati culture, promotion of women's education, and widow remarriages were also not appreciated by many Indians. Discontent among Sepoys. Sepoys were highly dissatisfied as the foreign of policies interfering with their religious ideology. Therefore, they were no more loyal to discriminating and suppressive East India Company's policies. Influence of outside events. Indians were also influenced by some of the outside wars and revolts that fought against the British troops. Important of them were the First Afghan War, fought between 1838 and 1842, Punjab War, fought between 1845 and 1849, Crimean War, fought between 1854 and 1856, Santhal Rebellion, fought between 1855 and 1857. Immediate causes. The introduction of the new infield rifles apparently was the immediate cause. The reason was the bullets of these rifles were covered by paper with grease-like thing, which was reportedly made of beef and pig fat. This grease was needed to be removed by teeth before using it. Because of the religious reason, both the Hindu and Muslim soldiers refused to do so. Beginning of revolt. It was Mangal Pandey who first refused to use Enfield rifle on March 29. He fired at the sergeant major of his unit at Barakpur, Bengal. Now it is West Bengal. As the consequence of Mangal Pandey's act, he was arrested and executed on April 6, 1857. On April 24, 1857, 90 men of 3rd Native Cavalry refused to accept the greased cartridge. As a result of this, on May 9, 85 men were dismissed and given rigorous sentence of 10 years. On May 10, the Indian soldiers released their comrades, killed their officers, and began the revolt. After this, they marched to Delhi. On May 12, the Sepoys captured Delhi and proclaimed the Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah II as the Emperor of India. Starting from the Meerut, the revolt spread to Delhi, Bareilly, Lucknow, Kanpur, Gwalior, Jhansi, Bihar, and many other parts of India. Now take a look of revolt centers and leaders. Though the Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah II was the leader of Delhi, but it was actually led by General Wakht Khan. Kanpur revolt was led by Nana Sahib, Lucknow by Begum Hazrat Mahal, Bareilly by Khan Bahadur, Bihar by Kuwar Singh, and Jhansi by Rani Lakshmi Bai. The British resistance and suppression. Though the revolt was on large scale, but in a few weeks, the company's officers controlled all the revolt centers one after another. Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Jhansi, Banaras, all centers were controlled. Once all the revolt centers controlled, now the question comes, what happened to those leaders? This question is also important for the competitive exams. All the leaders were suppressed badly by British officers. Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah II arrested and exiled to Rangoon, where he died in 1862. Nana Sahib escaped to Nepal. Tatya Tope arrested in a jungle and executed. Rani Lakshmi Bai died in the battlefield. Begum Hazrat Mahal escaped to Nepal and rest were also died. Now the question is, what were the causes of failure? Though the revolt was at mass level, but it failed because of many reasons. Significant of them were limited to only northern part of India. South, West and Northeast India were totally untouched. Lack of organization, coordination and unity among the Indian soldiers. Soldiers didn't plan their action. Indian soldiers had inferior arms and weapons. On the contrary, British troops had latest arms and weapons. Many leaders supported to East India Company instead of supporting the Indians. This was the most disgusting and crucial reason of failure. There was no qualified leader who could make a consistent ideology and national perspective. Because of all these reasons, the revolt failed badly. Nature of revolt. Revolt was interpreted differently by different people. As V.D. Savarkar said, revolt was a planned war of national independence. Dr. S.N. Sen said, what began as fight for religion ended as war of independence. R.C. Majumdar said, "It is difficult to avoid the conclusion that the so-called First National War of Independence of 1857 is neither first nor national nor war of independence." Some Marxists interpreted it as the revolt of 1857 was a struggle of the soldier-peasant democratic combined against foreign imperialism as well as indigenous landlordism. Mr. Rose had given a tribute to Rani Lakshmibai by saying, "Here lay the woman who was the only man among the rebels." Stanley Woolpert said, "It was a far more than a mutiny, yet much less than a first war of independence." Outcome of revolt. The revolt brought many structural changes for British as well as for Indian people. Significant of them were awakening of the lower class, including peasants, artisans, and other lower classes. Unified results. Hindus and Muslims were united and fought together. Beginning of national feeling. It was the time when people start feeling about the nationalism. East India Company rule abolished. Administrations were restructured. Armies were reorganized. Doctrine of lapse was cancelled. Moreover, the failure of 1857 revolt had commenced a new era and gave the feeling and sense of nationalism in Indians' mind. Thank you.